Thank you. Such an honor to share the TEDx stage with such an impressive group of people. Today I want to share with you my story. My name is Lucas. I come from Brazil. I came to America at the age of 9, and I am undocumented. I am unafraid, and I'm also unapologetic. Age 16, it's a time when all the teenagers are excited to get their driver's license, which is like an emblem of independent life, being able to move freely and boast about having an ID with an awkward-looking picture. And so all the teenagers look forward to their 16th birthday, and I did too. However, when my 16th birthday came around, I didn't get a chance to get my driver's license. What I got was a sit-down conversation with my parents, and they told me that I was not like the rest of my friends, that I was undocumented. You see, ever since we've been here in America, I knew that we were in an immigration limbo, but I never took the time to understand what my immigration status meant for me, meant for my family, or my lack thereof of immigration status meant for me and how it affected me. But I knew that after that conversation, my life would change. I was no longer Lucas, the high achiever, the boy who was passionate about life in his studies, but I was Lucas the illegal. And I went through my high school years still doing the best that I could to get the best out of my education and make my parents proud. But for me inside, I was completely living a different reality. You see, I was drowning in a sense of hopelessness. I could no longer think about being the first person in my family to go to college and about all the ambitious goals that I had for my future, because for me, it didn't matter. I was scared. I felt lonely in a sense of isolation. I was uncomfortable in my own skin. And you see, there are over 2 million undocumented youth in our country today. And although we come from different walks of life, we have different stories, we all share the feelings of being limited, of being restricted from opportunities, and feelings of exclusion and rejection. And as for me, in result of all the missed opportunities that I had throughout my high school career, I was on the brink of giving up and returning to Brazil, a country that I vaguely remembered, and a country that for me, quite honestly, seemed too distant to call home. And it was when I found out that regardless of my immigration status, I could attend college, that I decided to stay. And although I couldn't accept a lot of the college admissions that I got into, I decided to go to community college instead. So throughout the years, my status still haunted me, however. The more and more I thought about my status, the more and more I became bothered by it. And I realized that I needed to change something in my life. I was tired. I needed to try to create change somehow, but I didn't know through which avenues. And it was in the fall of 2010 where I discovered a group of students here in Connecticut that were forming and organizing. They were forming an organization that would advocate for the Federal DREAM Act, which is legislation that would provide students like myself a path to legalization. And I called these students on the phone and I shared with them my situation in secret, very secretly. And they invited me to this event that they were having on December 4th, 2010. And the event was called Undocumented Americans, CT Dreamers Speak. I was really apprehensive about it. I didn't want to go to the event, but I decided to go. And I, along with some other students, some of my friends who happened to be undocumented, we decided to go to this event. We come to the event about 45 minutes late. And as soon as I got in and heard the first person coming out as undocumented and unafraid, sharing their story so freely with such vigor and emotion, it was such a powerful experience. And I felt something like I'd never felt before. It was so powerful to see my struggles in their struggles and to see my story in their stories and see myself in them. And it was moments later when the organizers of the event, they asked if there were any students who would like to come up and share their story. One of the organizers and I made quick eye contact, and at that moment, I just gave a quick nod and I grinned, and minutes later, I was walking to the podium. And that was the first time that I publicly came out and said, my name is Lucas and I'm undocumented. And it was in a room with about 150 people. strangers, reporters. And at that time, while sharing my story, I had a fear. I was so scared that I'm putting myself at risk for deportation, which I was, but I was so scared to think about, I was just thinking about the risks of putting my family in danger and putting myself in danger. But at the same time, there was this immense burden lifted off my back. And I felt so empowered through the simple fact that I was stepping out of the shadows, coming out of this undocumented closet, and sharing my status for the first time with strangers. And knowing that I was manifesting like the exhaustion and the frustration that I felt inside through so many years. And it was at that event where I decided to commit myself to this movement that I'm part of now, and commit myself to the organization that I'm now proud to be lead coordinator of, which is Connecticut Students for a Dream. You see, thousands and thousands of dreamers who are undocumented youth who would qualify for the Federal Dream Act if it were enacted into law, are each and every day experiencing the power and realizing the power that they have in sharing their stories. Dreamers are coming out as undocumented and unafraid, and they're challenging the status quo. They're challenging the stratification of undocumented immigrants as criminals and as illegals, when, actions are illegal, never people. And dreamers are coming out and they're facing political structures and the power system face to face and demanding the rights of undocumented youth and the rights for our families. And they're demanding access to higher education. And they're mobilizing. They have intensified mobilizing efforts through even using organizing tactics through previous civil rights movements. And they're mobilizing against unprecedented levels of deportation by an administration that served to be the beacon of change and hope for our community. Dreamers are coming out and sharing their stories. And it's been so powerful to be part of that and see that. And ever since December 2010, which coincidentally was when I came out as undocumented and unafraid, a week later, the DREAM Act came as the closest it's ever been to being passed. And it didn't pass in the Senate by short of 5 votes. And ever since then, Dreamers have solidified this movement based on sharing stories and bringing stories into light that show the failings of our immigration system. And it's been awesome to be part of it. And throughout 2011 and 2012, I saw firsthand the growth of our movement here in Connecticut as well as nationwide. And the more and more I heard about the stories of families being torn apart by deportations and students not being able to go to college and immigrants being racially profiled and discriminated against in my own community, it was as though this fire inside of me was igniting again. And I knew that I had to do something about it and continue sharing my story. And I felt this sense of responsibility to my community, to my family, and to all immigrants to continue sharing my story and also share their stories. And on June 15th, 2012, last summer, we saw the effect that we had. We saw that there was an effect by sharing our stories. On June 15th, Obama introduced the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Policy, or DACA, which is a program that allows undocumented youth like myself who came to the United States before the age of 15 to legally work in the United States, and it grants them a relief from deportation. And we saw that it was because we were sharing our stories and we were bringing this issue into light. And as for me, my DACA approval came on November 6th, which was Obama's re-election. And it was such an amazing experience looking at the computer screen and knowing that my DACA was approved. In some weird way, I even felt a little bit more American in a way. And I was so thrilled and excited. And it's weird to think about it, but you'll never encounter a group of people who actually became eager to pay taxes and get a Social Security, or even wait hours in line at the DMV just to get an ID or a license. Such a powerful experience. And I was so excited to share with my parents. And I called them and I was thrilled, and I wished that they were thrilled too, and they were. But I was greeted with one question from my parents, and they asked, "What about us?" You see, that question literally felt like a dagger stabbing right through me. I had come so far from the moment where I first came out as undocumented. And I felt so empowered through my activism and the work that I was doing with Connecticut Students for a Dream that I failed to recognize that I would not be here if it wasn't for my parents. And if it was, they were the original dreamers. They dreamt of coming to America for better opportunities for my siblings and I. And they dreamt of creating this clean slate for our family and a chance to accomplish all the dreams that we ever had as a unit. Throughout the nation, dreamers in our movement were realizing that it's time to deal away with the rhetoric that we were brought here through no fault of our own, but it's time to incorporate the dreams and the hopes of our families into our narrative and into our stories. And to show people that our families, we have dreams, we have hopes, and we're no different than the American family next to you, next to us. And it's been such a powerful experience to realize that in our movement and to just include the stories of my family, of our families and relatives into our story. But what I realize is there's so much more work that needs to be done in terms of immigration. Immigration is such a complex issue. And right now, as we stand here today, immigration reform is being discussed back in Washington, D.C. And for Dreamers, we saw the power that we had in sharing our stories. And we saw that we're changing political structures and we're changing the stigma of immigration and creating this whole new sphere of dialogue in immigration. And what we're doing now is we're encouraging our parents and our relatives and our families to come out and share their stories as well. And as for you, the audience, I challenge you to look at immigration reform not as just a political issue, but a human issue. You see, undocumented immigrants are all around us. They're your neighbors, they're your fellow church members, there are your kids' parents, they're youth who dedicate their life to volunteering and helping the community. They're all around us, and they may all want to share their stories. And all they're looking for are ears to listen and hearts to understand. And as for me, I decided to share my story with you all here today at TEDxMillRiver. Thank you.